Restoration is an evocative word and implies so many things, yet since the mid-1980s it's been intrinsically linked with the classic car movement. God always talks to us in a language that we understand, and due to my passion for old machinery, God often talks to me through vintage cars and motorbikes. Every car has a beginning and an end. All start off in the showroom and all but a select few finally end up in the wreckers yard. All except those fortunate to undergo restoration. The 90s for me were my restoration years. I may have put my hand up to follow Christ on June the 18th, 1989, but I was far from roadworthy. For the next 10 years I was involved and sometimes subjected to a period of intense renewal, a time of great highs and deep lows, a season of challenge and at times static movement where each faltering forward step was preceded by 2 steps backwards. It was by far the hardest, most rewarding season where I transformed from slave to son. All cars eventually find themselves in the wreckers yard, robbed of parts, battered, decayed and broken shadows of their former selves. In the yard each day and night cars disappear, succumbing to hopelessness, crushed or cut up. The cutter's torch knows no pity. It's no respecter of rank or social standing. To it all, it's just dead meat. The Rolls Royce lies beside the Mini, the Maserati by the Morris. In the scrapyard, everything is levelled. Their status becomes the same. The only hope is the restorer, a true enthusiast who will, despite cost, restore them to better than they were ever before. The restorer looks for the honest car, honest about itself. He hears its cry for help, for mercy. Many cars still shine with sparkling paintwork, but beneath the thin veneer of paint are gaping holes, filler, and rampant decay. The restorer looks for the car that does not try to hide its wounds, but rather exposes them to the light of day. Desperation and a deep yearning for change that far exceeds embarrassment and shame. For a price far more than it's worth, the restorer purchases back the car. It cost him everything to buy this unique example, but such is his love. Wheeled away to the workshop, the restoration begins immediately. Everything broken is removed, and the car wheeled over the pit for a visual inspection. Cutting begins in earnest. The chassis, the very frame of the car that has kept it together all these years, is cut away. The only way to deal with decay is to cut right back into living flesh, a painful and unnerving experience. All that is required of the car is that it sits still and complies, putting its trust in the expert hands of the restorer. The car may well feel insecure at this time, as if it will fall apart, but what it fails to see are the jigs and many supports that the restorer has put in place at this time. Slowly, decay is replaced with strong new metal, as pure white light cuts and fuses newness to the pruned branch. Bit by bit the foundation is laid, the cornerstone upon which everything else will be built. Over time, a great trust develops between the car and the restorer. The restorer looks past beyond the faded paint, dents and broken parts, following a vision he has for the finished product. Never discouraged, never rushing his work, the master craftsman tackles each task individually and personally. It might be tempting to just bog the holes and apply fresh paint, but he works on the heart, the core, bringing stability and soundness where once was weakness and corruption. Fresh paint might give a good impression, but just below the surface the insidious cancer would still be present and growing. Preparation and care are his mantra. As time passes, the car begins to take shape. The major work is done, the lights work, the engine runs now sweetly, but the bodywork is still in ruins, the carbs unbalanced. The car revs to dizzy heights, but the brakes don't work. The car is raring to go, and the temptation is to go for a drive, but the restorer knows the folly of this temptation. With no brakes to halt the car, no lights to pierce the darkness, only disaster will follow such an action. Finally, fresh paint is applied and new chrome. Inside is the smell of freshness and newness. The restorer takes it out into the sun and applies polish. Suddenly, his reflection is vivid in his workmanship. Fresh oil anoints the engine, water and all it needs. The master craftsman gets in and turns the key, and finally the car roars to life. With great pride, they creep out of the driveway and turn into the road. As they pass by those on the streets, eyes follow them everywhere, with gasps of surprise. At first, the people's eyes are drawn to the car, but in a moment, they turn to the restorer, who has completed this amazing total restoration. The past is gone. Behold the road ahead. The restorer will always faithfully maintain the car, with regular services, fresh oil, water and fuel. Wherever it goes, it will always be a testimony to others of his care, power and skill. The picture you see is of a car found in a barn in France. It is a unique 1949 type at Largo. This ruin sold for £1.8 million. You see, even broken things still have a huge intrinsic value to the restorer, and he has the vision to make all things new.